The defense calls Leigh Ann Bayshore to the stand.
Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. As I walked to the stand, my body threatened to collapse. I sat, took a deep breath, and surveyed the jury. They already think I'm guilty. My stomach twisted, turned, shrank into a hard knot. The 12 strangers stared at me from behind the waist-high wall. Strangers who hadn't lived my hell, been terrorized with abuse, or killed to save their child's life. 11 men and 1 woman who would decide my fate. I scanned their faces, searching for compassion, finding none. The blonde in the blue skirt leaned back, scrutinizing the ceiling. The man in the green shirt smiled at the prosecutor. The lone woman studied me with an impossible-to-interpret expression. My ears turned into each small noise. The ticking of a clock, the tapping of a pencil, a man clearing his throat, even the crossing and uncrossing of legs. My body sensed every breath the people around me took. Every eye focused on me.
Monty, you have been so instrumental in kind of pointing me in the right direction. And
it was about looking at your character defects in spirituality.
It's the integration of clinical practices with the 12 steps.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people. He's got a lot of energy, and sometimes when you don't have so much energy, he picks you up and carries
Having
you.
the Monty Man there certainly helps.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Now here's that guy who's getting less popular minute by minute. Your host, the Multi-Man.
Well, welcome aboard, Recovery family, to the Good Ship Recovery here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial. How the heck you doing? Are you doing something? Are you doing something besides nothing? Or are you just kicking back and listening to the show today and soaking it up? I hope you're doing something healthy for your recovery today. Please do something now that will make the person you will be tomorrow proud to have been the person you are today. It's good, healthy stuff. So welcome to the show. Hey, listen. Imagine with me, if you would, you're working at a psychiatric hospital with a passion for the hurting and those with severe mental illness. Okay, now you meet a patient that for whatever reason seems to have the charisma or personality that you're drawn to, and against all warnings from others, despite their manic outbursts or their violent behavior and perhaps even prison time, you marry that person. Well, my guest this week did just that. When we come back, you're going to hear firsthand the story of Leigh Ann Bryant, author of In My Defense, a true story of an unlikely romance, a deadly gunshot, and a young widow's road to redemption. Don't go away. You don't want to miss this. This is amazing. This is powerful. We'll be right back.
Origins Recovery Centers provides integrated inpatient treatment for substance abuse and co-occurring disorders. At Origins, clients receive expert medical, clinical, and spiritual care individually designed for their needs. Our clients leave Origins with the foundation upon which they will build the rest of their lives. Call now to speak with an admissions specialist. Our toll-free number is 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Hey, this is the Monty Man at Take 12 Recovery Radio. You know, for way too long, the faith community and church leadership has had a misunderstanding of what addiction and recovery is really all about. Well, it's time we clear up some issues. Recovery Life presents Understanding Addiction and Recovery, an informational workshop focused on educating the faith community, clergy, lay people, and church leadership on the problem and solution of alcoholism and addiction. Friday nights, 7 to 9 p.m., beginning May 2nd and every Friday in May at Oak Creek Christian Center, 5775 Columbus Street Southeast, Albany, Oregon. Gender-specific recovery life groups and support meetings for friends and families will form during the workshops. For more information, visit recoverylife.org. Recovery Life, a community outreach for the Willamette Valley in cooperation with Oak Creek Christian Center.
This is Chris Schroeder. You are listening to Take12Radio.com, recovery talk and positive music.
All right, welcome back. And my guest this week, this is an amazing story. You don't want to miss a second of this, is the author of a gripping memoir of a misguided young woman whose consuming yearning to feel loved and accepted led her to the most unimaginable circumstances. It was during our guest psychiatric clinical that Leanne, a nursing student, met Vincent Bayshore, a mental patient who was diagnosed as a bipolar sociopath. In her quest to save him from his own emotional and mental turmoil, Leanne did the unthinkable. She fell in love with the patient. Leanne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You know, this is something. This is a book that is very difficult to put down once you start it. It's like something right out of a movie. Is that what it felt like when you put this book together? Did you feel like, man, I just lived a movie?
Yeah, or a soap opera, because there's one tragedy after another.
My goodness, young lady. Gee, you know, and okay, so far, the listeners have got a little bit of a peek into what was going on, and they're probably thinking, Leanne, what were you thinking? Right?
Yeah, I think I was thinking that when you said those things too.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. So you're in the nursing field. You're working with people that need your help. What happened? How did you end up falling in love with this guy?
Well, I guess all my life, I just had this yearning to feel complete and to feel needed and worthwhile and worthy of unconditional love. I had just yearned to hear things and feel things. And Vincent, because I was a nursing student, I had to do like care plans and all sorts of things and spend a lot of time getting to know him, spend a lot of time talking with him.
Yeah.
And as I was doing that, he's telling me about his childhood and things that had happened to him. And he had a very, very rough childhood. And so I just had sympathy well up inside me, and I felt so bad for him. And I thought, oh goodness, he's made so many terrible choices, but he's had so many bad things happen to him, and he really just wants to be a happy, normal person. And you know, I wanted that for him.
Yeah.
And at first it was just me wanting to do what I could to help him and to help him overcome and to help him feel like he was worthy, and so we would talk a lot. It became almost like a friendship, and it went on for a little while like that. But he obviously, from the very beginning, he was flirty and just charming and so good looking, and he would just, I would get these little butterflies in my tummy, and I would think, oh, I can't, you know, he's the patient, he's got all these problems. But also, okay, so he had diagnoses of bipolar. Well, he was on medication, and that kept him stable. And he had made all these announcements that, you know, he was going to take that medication for the rest of his life. He didn't want to be that way again, manic one minute, depressed the next.
Sure.
And then he had the antisocial personality disorder diagnosis, which most people think of as sociopath or psychopath. Well, I had spent, like I said, many hours talking with him and getting to know him. And, I was 22, and I knew everything. I was smart. And I just felt like I knew more than those doctors that gave him that diagnosis, who probably just spent 10 minutes, at a time with him and didn't get to know him. And so I just thought they were wrong,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see any of the antisocial personality disorder, although I really didn't understand what it meant. I just had this understanding that it was not a good thing, but he seemed like a really good guy who just wanted to be normal. And I guess somewhere deep inside I felt like whenever I helped people with problems, or when I fixed things, or whenever I made somebody feel better, it gave me worth, and I wanted to be worthy. And I felt like probably Vincent was the most messed up person I could find, and if I could fix him, then I would finally be worthy of the unconditional love I had always wanted in my life.
Yeah.
He really just sucked me in with his charm, and
sure,
he was so, it was just intoxicating, the way he treated me and talked to me and looked at me. He looked at me like no one else had ever looked at me, and it was just intoxicating.
Yeah, and really, to his credit, he was falling for you too, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he wasn't intentionally manipulating and being evil and all that kind of stuff. In his way, he was in love with Leanne.
Yes, he was. He was. The thing is that for somebody with antisocial personality disorder, they have a real hard time they don't understand what empathy is, and they don't understand consequences, and they don't understand that their actions can hurt other people. And if they do, they don't care if they hurt other people. So really they are quite narcissistic in that way. And so even though he truly, he loved me, but it was more of, I'm going to get her for what she can do for me, I think, because it was all about him feeling loved for him.
Right.
But I didn't understand that.
Sure. Okay, so you're falling for this guy. You're seeing the best in him that perhaps others aren't seeing because they're looking at him from a different set of glasses than you are, and perhaps maybe a clearer set of glasses than you are. But you didn't know that, so I mean, I get it. I do. And one of the things that you talk about is, and I'm gonna paraphrase this, put it in my own words, but your addiction to being accepted. True?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And to being accepted, I was addicted to being needed, to having worth, to doing things to find worth. Yeah.
And so your self-worth was wrapped up in what somebody else thought or didn't think of you.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that's different today. But okay, so you fall in love, you got this relationship thing going. Did things seem to be pretty much okay in the beginning, and when did it start to turn?
Yeah, they were really good at first. The thing that I could say about our early relationship was he was a very jealous man, but I felt like that was kind of expected from someone who his mother had abandoned him, then his father, then his grandmother, then his aunt. I mean, he just had people who should have loved him abandoning him and rejecting him, and so
it made sense.
He had a lot of insecurities, and my loving him was so important to him that he made it to me like, okay, I know I'm over jealous, over the top, but it's only because I love you so much. And if I didn't love you, I wouldn't care, but I do care because I love you. And he was so jealous that all I could take from that was, he must really, really love me because he was so jealous. And his jealousy came out in really two kind of ways. One way was he was so jealous that he was very controlling. he didn't want me going places without him or doing things without him, and he would kind of let me know what I shouldn't wear that outfit, or you should wear this one instead, or why would you want to go hang out with your friends? Do you love that friend more than you love me? If you love me, you just want to be with me, and just very, very controlling. And then when he would get jealous over sometimes the most silly things, like we'd be stopped at a red light, and a guy in the car next to us would just kind of nod and smile, and he would throw accusations at me. Why would this guy smile at me? And his jealousy would come out in anger, and his anger was usually yelling, screaming, name-calling. Maybe he would throw something or smash something or punch something, but it was not really directed. The throwing and punching and stuff, that wasn't directed at me. The yelling and name-calling was.
Yeah.
But to me, I kept thinking, okay, well, then I just need to not let him get jealous. I need to show him even more that I love him, and once he's assured of my love and that I'm not going to abandon him and leave him, he'll stop being so jealous. And a lot of the anger that came out as like verbal and emotional abuse, it was a lot like what I dealt with as a child from my father, and so I didn't see it as abnormal at the time. I didn't think that it was wrong for your boyfriend to call you names and scream at you when he was angry.
Yeah. I get that. I was watching an old John Wayne movie the other day, McClintock or something like that, and it was perfectly acceptable and expected for these guys of the West to spank their wives and put them in their place.
Yeah.
And this is a hero, And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, wow, we were really sick back then too. Yeah. So you thought that was the norm. Well, things got. I really want people to get this book, and let me just tell the listeners right now. The website is leighanbryant.com, LeighanBryant.com. You can follow the links here. If you're watching on YouTube, it's up on the YouTube channel. And to get this book, in my defense, we're not going to have time to go into the detail that I would like to with, but I don't want to ruin people's a reading experience either. This book is absolutely, I have to congratulate you, Leighann. This is very, very well done. You did a superb job. Now, there came a point when this went from bad to worse. Why don't you tell us about that and what ended up happening?
Yeah, over time, the abuse escalated, as it always does.
Yeah.
The verbal abuse got worse, got louder. The emotional abuse got more intense. The length of time that he was screaming and yelling or being violent was longer. The honeymoon phase that typically follows the abusive stage, where they're so apologetic and wanting to redeem themselves, it kept getting shorter and shorter. And as the abuse escalated, it wasn't just him slamming a door, it was him slamming me into the wall or against the door, holding me against my will, not letting me leave. It wasn't just throwing something, it was throwing it at me or breaking it on me. And then it got to more with the emotional abuse began to come with threats on my life. If you leave me, I will hunt you down and kill you. If you cheat on me, I will kill you and kill him. And so verbal threats on my life that then escalated. And what I didn't know at the time was that he'd gotten off his medications and he'd go into mania and he was using drugs. And so his antisocial personality disorder was getting much worse. He was very paranoid, and he thought I was plotting against him. And so his threats on my life became even more detailed when he would just not just say it, but he would threaten to kill me while he was sitting on me, holding a knife to my throat.
Wow.
And it got to where that was pretty much daily. I was so afraid to do anything. I didn't know what I could do or where I could go or who I could turn to. There was no one I could trust, no one I was too ashamed. I felt too guilty. I wanted to leave, but I didn't know how. I figured he knew everything. He somehow knew everything about me. And I found out later it was because he would follow me. He would spy on me while I was at work. He would leave tape recorders around the house so he'd know what I was up to while he was gone. He had a tap on our phone. I wasn't allowed to check the mail or answer the phone. He would strip search me when I came home, and he would from work, and he would spend hours while I was gone going through all of my belongings. So I thought there's no way I can leave and him not find me. He told me, if you leave, I'll find you, and I knew that he could, and I knew if I called the police that he would make me pay.
Yeah.
Even if he got arrested, he had friends who would, it was just a hopeless, helpless situation, and I had no idea. And I just kept thinking, if I could just be a better wife, if I could just do better, if I could just show him I love him more. And then it turned into, okay, if I could just convince him, let him think it's his idea for this marriage to end. Let him think,
Yeah.
And I kept trying to come up with ways to fix it or make it better. And then what happened was he began to escalate his threats by threatening our son's life. And and that was when all of a sudden it wasn't just about him hurting me or what was going to happen to me. It was my son. And that, I guess that mama bear inside me came out and was like, okay, you can do what you want, say what you want to me, but you're not going to hurt my baby.
Right.
And so there was this new level of, I've got to do something. But again, I went through all the thoughts, and very detailed in the book, all these thoughts I've tried.
Yeah.
But the only thing I could come up with was, when he gets angry, he loses control. He has absolutely no control over what he's doing. But then when he's done with his abuse, he's always he calms down, and he's so sorry, and he's so just remorseful. And if I could just find some way to get him to switch from that out-of-control anger to, oh, my gosh, what did I just do? I'm so sorry. And how can I get him to switch to that? Because the control, when he was so out of control with anger, I was about as powerful as a rowboat in an ocean that's having a tsunami go on. I had no control, no power. And so I thought, what is it that I could do that I could gain some control, that I could change his thought pattern? And the only thing I could think of was something that was of his kind of lifestyle, was to get a gun. And I thought, if I could just get a gun, that's one thing he'll pay attention to. And then all I have to do is just show him that I have it and say, leave, get out. That's it. I'm calling the police, and he would
go. Yeah.
But the night that it got really, I knew it was worse than ever, because this time he wasn't just holding the knife to my throat. He was actually breaking my skin, making me bleed, threatening. I just knew this was it. He was going to kill our son right in front of me, make me watch, and then he was going to kill me, and all these horrible things. And I was able to get to the gun, and when I brought it out and told him to leave, again, I just knew he was just going to just leave, but that isn't what he did. And instead he came at me and was trying to get it, and we were struggling, and the gun went off, and it went off again. It was, I didn't even know what was going on. All I knew is that all of a sudden he was no longer trying to get the gun from me. And when I opened my eyes, I saw him running out of the house, running to the front door to leave. And all I could think of was, thank goodness he's leaving.
So really, this was not only in self-defense, but in its truest form, it was kind of an accident too, right?
Yeah, it absolutely was.
Yeah. Getting
the gun was the self-defense part.
Right.
The the trigger going. In fact, something that was brought up at my trial was that when they did the gunpowder test on us, mine actually came back negative, whereas his came back positive.
Interesting.
Which shows that he had his hand around the gun.
Around the gun.
Off.
Okay. So how in the world does this get so twisted around that you end up going to prison for an act of self-defense when there's all this evidence of abuse and the gunpowder and everything else? How did that get twisted?
Well, first of all, there was no evidence of abuse.
Oh, okay. So you had.
I was a true victim that suffered with battered women syndrome so severely that I covered, I hid, I lied.
Yeah.
I did not tell anybody what was going on, and I didn't take notes. I never called the police. I didn't do anything that could get him in trouble, and so that's part of it. There was no proof of abuse, and that's something that I try to help people understand. No matter what's going on, even if it's not what you would consider major abuse, you need to document it. You need to call the police. You need to journal about it. You need to take pictures. You need to tell somebody. You need to, whatever it takes, go to the doctor. Get the evidence there. But also because I was so afraid when the police showed up that night and I'm doing CPR on my husband, all I can think of is I can't tell them what happened, because if he lives, he's going to make me pay because he's going to get in trouble. And if he dies and I've told on him, then he's going to haunt me forever. And if they arrest me and take me away, I lose my son. And how do I tell my son someday that this is what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just couldn't. I tried to, when they kept saying, "Who shot your husband?" I kept trying to form the words, but I just couldn't. And so finally one of the officers said, "Was it the same guy who cut you?" And my years of storytelling for Vincent, I mean, I had gotten really good at lying, and so the story just formed, and it was perfect. It was perfect, brilliant. I mean, somebody else broke into our home, did this damage to me. My husband was trying to be the hero, and he died in the process. I mean, what a great story to tell your son someday. And then he wouldn't get in trouble. I wouldn't get in trouble. He wouldn't get mad at me for telling on him. It was all perfect. But what I didn't know at the time, I mean, this was in the 90s. There were no CSI shows back then. I'd never heard of forensics.
Right.
I didn't know that they were going to be able to tear my house apart and know for sure that there had not been an intruder. There had been no one else in the house that night. So it was really all based on the fact that I lied to the police that night. And, of course, when you lie to the police, they jump to the worst conclusions. Well, she's lying because this was murder, and so there was just a lot of things stacked up against me. And most of it just really my doing, my lying, my covering, my everything. And so that's how I ended up charged with murder.
Oh man, and really, when you were stuck, you were in what do you do? I mean, this isn't something you had experience with. Gee whiz. Oh my goodness. And so you ended up being in prison for how long?
Well, actually, I want to say, especially given what this program is that it took them a good 3 months to get me indicted for murder. And in that 3 months, I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't tell anyone the truth. I became passively suicidal. And one of the things that I did where I was just kind of passively trying to kill myself, not just numb myself, was I began taking a large amount of pain medication.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to be numb. I just didn't want to feel the pain. And I just sank into this depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, where I'd relive the night over and over. And I got so sick with my depression and taking the pain medication that I ended up checking myself into a psychiatric hospital. So that's, it's kind of like a full circle there, right?
Yeah, you bet.
I've been there, and now I'm the patient, and unfortunately, I couldn't really get much help in the hospital because, again, I couldn't tell people the truth. I couldn't talk about what happened that night. And then it was like the last day of my hospitalization that I received a call from my attorney telling me that I was indicted. But I ended up, actually, what I did was I had about 8 months in the county jail, and then I got out on bond. My parents hired this really great attorney, and he got me out on bond, and we were preparing for my trial. And while we were preparing for the trial, the prosecutor was trying to get me to plea bargain. And their first offer was 35, and then it was 20, and then it came down to 12. And when I turned the 12 down, the prosecutor went back to the grand jury and said, look, this girl's already indicted for murder, and there was a life insurance policy, so we want to re-indict her for capital murder. And so then he went to my attorney and said, if she's not going to take 12 years, we're going to go to trial for capital murder, which in Texas is either life or death.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, they did waive the death penalty, but at that point, capital life, I would not be eligible for parole for 40 years. But I just knew while I was incarcerated, waiting, before I got out on bond, that's when I asked Jesus into my heart, and everything changed for me. I did not grow up a believer. I didn't know God. I didn't know anything about Him. I mean, I knew a little. I knew, we have Christmas and Easter because of Jesus, so, He must be real. But it was there that I really found freedom and love, and the unconditional love that I'd always longed for, and the joy and the peace. And so I knew that God was with me, and I did not feel like He wanted me to accept a plea bargain. I knew that I had to fight, and I went to trial, and my jury, I know it had to have been a really heart-wrenching decision for them because a life was lost.
Yeah.
Yet there was also allegations of abuse, and when I took the stand and they heard what happened that night, but they also heard that I lied to the police, and they heard that I lied about all these other things, and I had no evidence of the abuse. And so that was a really hard thing to, it's so hard for people to get it. Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you tell anyone? And of course the prosecutor's sitting there going, if you were really abused, you would have told someone, why did you would have told the police that night instead of lying. And so, I know it was a really hard decision for my jury, but they did acquit me of capital murder and murder, and they convicted me of aggravated assault.
Yeah.
For that, it's a second-degree felony. 2 to 20 is the sentence, and they gave me 7 years, but then they gave me, they probated it, so I got probation. And as a probation condition, the judge gave me another 6 months in the county jail. So I didn't actually go down to prison, but I did spend quite a bit of time locked up.
Well, I got to tell you, I don't know about Texas, but I know about here, and I'd rather go to the state penitentiary and spend 6 months than the county jail and spend 6 months. Gee.
I think that's definitely true. The prison, not that I'd want to go there,
right?
But you can get a job and you can go to the dining hall to eat, and you can walk to the commissary store, and you can go outside, and you've got some freedoms, and you can. It's totally different. And jail, you get put in this rectangular tank, really the size of people's living rooms, and 12 women have to stay in there 24/7, and you get a little metal bunk and a really thin mattress, and you just you don't get to leave your tank.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you what you think about how the judicial system, people in general, what you think about how they're looking at these kind of things today versus back in 1994. And so think about that for a minute. Folks, don't go away. More with my guest, author Leigh Bryant, the author of this riveting book. It really is. In My Defense. You really need to get this. This is amazing stuff. You are going to travel with her in, I am telling you, this is incredible detail. And it is very well done. And I want to say this before we go to the break. You have done a tremendous job of sharing your experience, strength, and hope through this experience without tearing him to shreds. Most people would just go after this guy with tooth and nail. But you express so wonderfully in here how he was sick. And that, well, we're gonna talk about that towards the end of the show. Something that you say in your epilogue in this book. This listener, this is not a woman who is out for revenge. This is a woman who has much compassion, has every right to feel revengeful, but because of what God has done in her life, that's not the case. So more when we come back. Don't go away.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
When I first came to Serenity Springs, I never thought I could stay clean and sober. And then after being through the 12 steps and getting closer to God and just learning how to live, I can't imagine life with drugs and alcohol anymore.
Introducing Serenity Springs Recovery Center, a fully licensed residential drug and alcohol dependence treatment center for men, specializing in helping individuals with substance abuse problems. Addiction is a disease that deteriorates the body, punishes the mind, and destroys the spirit. Addiction needs to be attacked on all three of these fronts.
They work the steps, they work them extremely hard. Finding God is a big part, and that's what they did for me. They gave me a life second to none.
Residents live in a resort-style accommodations and are able to participate in numerous on-site activities.
Golf and working out, playing basketball a lot.
Serenity Springs is a unique facility that is committed to providing exceptional individual care in small group settings.
They talk about life beyond your wildest dreams. I never thought that was possible for me, and today I'm living it.
And just being connected. Guys are like my brothers, just a big family.
At Serenity Springs, they want to make a life-changing investment into your recovery. For more information, contact their 24-hour admissions department at 386-423-4540 or visit their website at serenityspringsrecovery.com.
It's really amazing what's happened. I mean, it's nothing short of a miracle.
All right, and welcome back. And our guest this week is author Leigh Bryant. Her story is In My Defense, an unlikely romance, a deadly gunshot, and a young woman's road to redemption. Hey, listen, it was in the early morning hours of September 16th, 1994, that Leigh, fearing for her life and that of her young son, shot and killed her husband. Panicked and afraid of retaliation, she told the police an intruder had committed the crime. Well, indicted for murder and subsequently jailed, Leigh-Ann's journey of desperation miraculously turned to one of ultimate healing. And you credit the Lord Jesus Christ for that, true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Leigh-Ann, do you think since the days when this all took place, that we're getting any better in the judicial system, in the counseling arena, in the treatment field, et cetera, understanding that people that are battered, abused, and so forth, may be lying just to protect themselves, and maybe we should not consider that is a sign of guilt always. You think we're getting better?
I do. I do think we're getting better. I haven't studied it in depth or anything, but I think that awareness is much, much higher these days. And I know at the time that my trial happened, I had one attorney, not the one who ended up defending me at my trial, but the one prior to him, like, you can't even claim battered women syndrome. Nobody will buy it, and it's not gonna. Nobody does that, And there were, I think, a lot of states even that did not allow it into as any kind of defense. But I think that we're definitely getting better, and people are more aware. There are more shelters. There are more, and especially with the website, with the internet. There's so many websites where people can get help. When I was going through this, I didn't know that there were women's shelters or places to go for help or phone numbers, and certainly I couldn't just get on a computer and Google domestic violence or even, there's so many. When I was putting together my own website and doing research, I found so many blogs and so much information out there that it's definitely different. It still has a long way to go, though.
Yeah, you bet. Now, one of the things that impressed me about your book is this isn't just about your story. This really helps people to see warning signs, to be alerted of the things that are going on around them, to recognize what red flags are red flags. I mean, this isn't somebody that, oh, woe is me, this is what happened, and I just want to tell you, everybody, how horrible it was. You have a method to your sanity. You say a method to your madness, but this is a method to your sanity. You want to help people, and that's what you do today, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's definitely it. I certainly would never have even considered writing this book if it were just to tell my story. I never wanted to be a writer or write a book. It was just that after all this happened, and I went through a whole lot of counseling, and then I would go around and I would talk to people and speak at women's shelters or go in front of a room full of medical students and explain to them the importance of asking their patients about domestic violence. That people kept coming to me and telling me I needed to write a book, and I'm like, no way, this is private. It's hard enough to get up and talk about it. Sure. It's too embarrassing. There's too much that I'm ashamed of. I'd have to be transparent, but God just kept telling me that I needed to do this because there's too much glory that He can receive out of this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bet. Okay, share with us. You had a little boy in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
His name is Vincent.
Yep, Vincent Jr.
All right, so how did that go? How's your relationship now? Is there a rocky road there?
No, we love each other very much. He lives in another state. He's 20 now, but he's an adult and living his own life. He's got a job in another state, and he's very strongly independent. But we have been very, very close. I miss him tremendously right now.
I'll bet.
I don't get to speak to him very much, but especially for the years, I did lose custody of him for a few years after this. But then when I got custody of him back, and it was the summer before his third grade year that I got him back, and then he was here until he went off to college, and we were very, very close. Some people would say maybe he's a mama's boy, and he would be very protective of me. But of course, he too, as a teenager, I'm not going to lie, there have been times that he's been angry at me, or that when we were fighting, he kind of threw it in my face. You know, that he couldn't have a normal life because he didn't have a daddy because I took his daddy away, and you know, so there's certainly been a few hurtful things, but I think that it's been hard on him, but he loves me.
Yeah, that's great. That's I'm so glad. And then you and your husband Lonnie have a son Joseph, and you have a stepson Bailey, who's a coach and a teacher, and 3 daughters.
Yeah, he has 3 daughters. So I have 3 granddaughters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So definitely. You know, the verse about God restoring what the locusts have eaten. I mean, he promised me when I was sitting in that jail cell that if I would put my trust and faith in him, that he would restore me. And he went way above and beyond any expectation that I ever had.
Now, I'm gonna focus on an area that a lot of people that listen to this show are going to be going, what, Monty? What are you doing? And that's a thing called smart recovery. You know, amongst the 12-step community, that could be kind of a controversial approach. And I think just as people, particularly people in the faith community, because of what the 12 steps fellowships have done to the 12-step program today, I understand why there's a lot of misunderstanding. But I think that's getting better too. But just as there's lack of understanding and it's controversial for people, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they just haven't done the investigation. We have a thing called contempt prior to investigation. We talk a lot about in 12-step circles. And I think maybe that there is some contempt because of lack of investigation on the part of some folks that, you know, respectively are listening to this show right now. You've been involved in Smart Recovery. You've also been very involved in Celebrate Recovery, which is a faith-based, Christ-centered recovery organization. So you have kept your feet in the recovery circles.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'll bet that's been a real joy for you.
Pardon?
I'll bet that's been a real joy for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And there's so much to learn, and from both of them. They're very different.
Yeah.
Smart and Celebrate Recovery, but they both have so much to offer, and and you know, I've gotten a lot out of both of them.
Oh, I'm so glad, because one size doesn't necessarily fit all. It just doesn't.
Right.
But you and I know that it's powerlessness over our separation from God. I mean, that's really what it is, and that the solution is God. And you've discovered that along with thousands of people.
Yes.
And what a marvelous thing that you're still giving it away. You're still doing this thing. Now, you make a statement I want to camp out on just for a second. You say, justified or not, the fact is I took a life, and all life is sacred. And not just the life of a man I loved wholeheartedly, but the life of my son's father. You say, for that I continue to struggle for self-forgiveness. I was determined to be free from the captivity of shame and guilt, and I found help. Over time, you say you moved from victim to victor, and you became a survivor, and now you just want to help other people find freedom. Do you still, since you wrote that statement, do you still struggle with self-forgiveness?
You know, it creeps up on me, and it's funny that you're asking me that, because if you remember when we had our pre-interview, you made a comment, and I was talking about some people who are still not real happy with me, and you said, what are they going to do, take your birthday away? And it was so funny when you said it, and I just kind of laughed like, yeah, right? And then all of a sudden it was like Satan just said to me, well, you took Vincent's birthday away, didn't you? You know, it's just that little, every once in a while something will come in, and then I go, oh my goodness, you know?
Yeah. Well, can I encourage you with an opinion?
Okay.
Okay. It's just my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. And it's not mine. I heard this years ago. I did something one time. I mean, I did a lot of stupid things, but in my active addiction. But I did something one time that above everything else that I had done, it was the one thing I just could not forgive myself for. I mean, it haunted me day and night. And it didn't matter how much God loved me. It didn't matter how much I knew that the blood of the cross covered me, that I had been set free, that he had removed the obsession to use and drink. It didn't matter. I could not shake this tremendous burden of unforgiveness towards myself. And somebody told me, they said, Monty, are you deity? I said, what? Are you deity? I said, no. He said, did you know that deity is the only power that has the ability to completely and 100% forgive? He said, aren't you expecting yourself to be God? I said, what? And he said, you don't have the ability to forgive yourself. It's already been done. And I thought, because what I was doing, Leanne, I was spending, and it doesn't sound like you're doing this because you said it creeps up every once in a while, and I think that's normal. But what I was doing, and for anybody listening, I was obsessing over the fact that I couldn't forgive myself. I was obsessing over something that I didn't have the ability to do anyway.
Right. I totally agree with that. And I think that for a very long time, I was more like how you were in that scenario. And the advice that I received, or that I think somebody just mentioned it one day in a Sunday school class, and it's kind of how I interpreted in my way, is that do I think that I'm so important, that I'm more important and bigger than God, that I'm bigger than the cross?
Mm-hmm.
Because the only thing that wouldn't be forgiven by the cross is something that's bigger than the cross. And anything I do, it's just not that big.
Yeah. I heard somebody talk about the other day that guilt can actually be a very selfish emotion.
It is.
Yeah.
It's putting. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But you're doing such tremendous work with helping other people. You work full time as an RN, and I mean, you must see more of this kind of mental illness in your circles. How do you look at it through a different set of glasses now, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, right now I work as a dialysis nurse,
right.
Acute care dialysis, so I don't really see it so much there. But for quite a few years after that, I worked in the ER, and yeah, I would definitely spend extra time with patients if I suspected abuse or when they come in and talk about it. There were quite a few times that I was able to convince the victim to not go home, to call a shelter, or to go ahead and call the police and press charges when they were not wanting to do that. And then the other people in the ER were more like, oh, if she doesn't want to press charges, then, that's her business. But,
right.
I
want to. We're out of time, and you're getting ready to do yet another interview. And I want to say, and you didn't ask me to do this, and I want the listeners to understand that full-heartedly. Leanne had no request of hers. I want to make sure that people understand this. For those of you who are out there that may be listening, that may have a problem with my sister, this author, I want you to understand something. I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this from my lips. This comes out of the epilogue of the book, In My Defense. And this is what Leanne says. She says, my husband wasn't a horrible monster. He had a variety of mental illnesses that were no fault of his own. He wanted to be good, but one bad choice after another sucked him into a deep, dark hole ruled by the demons of his past. Vincent's life was too short, too tragic. At least I can look back on memories and pictures and know I gave him the happiest times of his life. We shared a son, took trips to Hawaii, New York, and Washington, D.C., and enjoyed mundane things such as fishing, kite flying, and watching movies. Vincent gave me so much no one else ever had. Yes, he brought terror and pain and fear, but he also brought more love, passion, and pleasure than I'd ever known before meeting him. His love consumed me, saturated me, sedated me. He was so good at loving. Unfortunately, he was equally good at tormenting. Many of my memories with Vincent are vivid. The most painful are buried deep. I didn't write much about all the terror and abuse because I wanted to remember the good things about him, the love, the charm. The really bad stuff scared me and left deep, painful memories for which I received a lot of counseling. What I'm hearing here is a woman, listeners, listen to me good, is a woman who does not hold resentment towards her husband, former husband, who does not hold evil intent. This is a woman who has experienced the forgiveness of Christ and who is offered the forgiveness of Christ and is living in that grace. And I just wanted to make sure that people understood that because it comes across very clear in this book. And that is a wonderful testimony to your intentions. And I want to thank you for that, Leanne.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Leanne, people can get your book at leannebryant.com. Follow the links here on our website. Can they get this on Amazon as well?
Yeah.
Is there something you'd like to share with the listeners in the last couple of minutes we have that you would really like to, get across to them?
Just that if they're wondering, is it abuse? There's a chance it is. There's actually on my website a little kind of like a questionnaire because we deserve better. We deserve to be treated with love and respect.
Yeah.
And there's help, and you are loved unconditionally by God, and people care.
And let me ask you this question before we close, because I know some people in this position. If you're the person in your life, for lack of a better way to term this, is only using verbal abuse. Only is a misguided word, but if that's what they're doing, it's not a violation of your loyalty to keep a record of that, is it?
No.
I mean, because it could be the very thing that saves your life later. I mean, if somebody's starting, because isn't that where a lot of this starts in many cases is verbal?
Yes, verbal and emotional, and really sometimes, in most cases, that's worse than the physical abuse.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your book again. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Let's keep in touch. Drop me an email once in a while. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how the book's doing. And you have an open invitation to come on the show anytime you want to, Leanne.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Folks, Leanne's website is leannebryant.com. You can follow the links here until our next broadcast. This is the Monty Man, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.